Call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone here this evening. For the record, this is a joint meeting of the Town Board and the Planning Board for the purpose of a public hearing, which is a quasi-judicial hearing, and I know y'all being the Planning Board and our board tired of hearing me say this, but I need to say it for the record and for those in the audience as well. It is a quasi-judicial hearing, which is similar to a court proceeding. You might think of me as being the judge and y'all as being the jury. So all people give evidence and they must state their name, address, and be sworn or affirmed. Decisions are to be made based on the evidence presented, not hearsay or unsubstantiated personal opinion. If you're concerned about being able to consider any of this testimony, you need to ask our attorney for a determination on that. And after each speaker has finished, then questions may be asked first by the boards and then by interested parties, which is any entity who has a recognizable stake in the outcome of the matter. Once the hearing is closed, then there's no further evidence may be presented or acquired. So I need to ask if any of the board members of either board has an ethics conflict, relevant evidence, or ex parte conversation that needs to be shared. Okay. Hearing none, then I will first ask for a staff report, and from there we'll go to anyone wishing to give testimony.
Thank you. Good evening. So for the staff report, the first slide is to enter the staff report and the agenda plus the attachments into the record for the hearing.
First, can we get you sworn in,
Sure.
please, Julie?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name, please.
Julie Spriggs, Senior Planner, Town of Zebulon. So now I enter the evidence into exhibit for the staff report and the agenda plus the attachments for the hearing as part of the record, so that you may base your findings of fact on anything in the agenda and the attachments. The case before you tonight is Special Use 2017-03. It's a 72-unit apartment complex located on Pony Road. This is a slide showing just a synopsis of the information. Request by Bill Owen, United Developers. The property owner, site address, the current use is vacant. The existing zoning is R10. The proposed use is residential multifamily. And there is not a TAA required for this use because it does generate less than 100 trips for the development. So to the north of the parcel in question, we have Tidewater Investors. To the south, we have Zebulon Health Holdings. To the east, we have the Housing Authority from Wake County. And to the west, we have the vacant lot that is part of the Gethsemane Memorial Cemetery. So here are the highlighted yellow parcels showing the request area, and I'll just move my mouse on the screen so you can see. But these are the two parcels. So this is the vacant parcel of the Gethsemane Memorial, and this is the Housing Authority here, Shannon Drive, and then the Zebulon Holdings, which is Saints Assisted Living. This is a proposed site plan at this time. Part of the conditions is that the site plan will be coming through TRC for final approval, so this is just the proposed concept plan as they go through the special use permit. But you see the secondary entrance, the main entrance, the stormwater pond for the best practice management in the northwest corner of the parcel. You see 9 buildings. The maximum will be 72 units. They're waiting for the market study to see how many units they will be doing, but at this time the request is for up to 72 units. You see ample parking, a community center, the sidewalks throughout. You see lots of landscaping and lots of amenities on site, such as covered picnic area, tot lot, playground. They have a very nice site plan for a concept plan. So again, the yellow hatch is the parcel in question. The Special use development to the south is the RMF SUD, which is what the zoning will be if the special use permit is approved. You see residential multifamily over to the east, and then TR and heavy business and the medical arts surrounding. For the land use, again, the yellow hatch is the parcel in question. You have high density and medium density residential surrounding the property on all sides from the comprehensive plan. Limitations on imposing conditions. The ordinance must provide authority and set a process to impose conditions. The ordinance must include standards the conditions will address. Substantial evidence in the record must support conditions actually imposed. Conditions that impose an exaction must be reasonable, related, and proportionate to the impact of the development. A condition cannot be imposed just because a council thinks it would be a good idea or because it is desired by neighbors. Any condition that is imposed must be purposed to bring the permit into compliance with standards that are included in the ordinance. All conditions must be based on meeting a relevant standard in the ordinance, and the conditions must reasonably relate to that standard. Staff has proposed 45 conditions for the development. They are listed in your attachment as attachment 20. The developer has agreed to most of the proposed conditions except for a minor change to the recreations amenities, which I'll go over in a minute. This PowerPoint will highlight the proposed conditions but not go over each one individually in the interest of time. However, if members of the board, the public, or staff would like to discuss any proposed conditions, we are prepared to do that, and please feel free to do so through the public hearing. The agenda and all the attachments have been in the planning department office on display for public viewing since February 3rd. The agenda was placed on the town's website for public viewing as well. Condition 16 has proposed changes by the developer to remove the requirement for dog waste stations. After discussion with the developer on pet policy, dog waste stations will not be necessary as pets will not be allowed on the premises. So what we are proposing for condition 16 is just striking the language of dog waste stations. The water and sewer allocation policy. The City of Raleigh Public Utility Department standards for water and sewer usage for a 1 or 2 bedroom unit. This includes single-family dwelling units, multifamily units, and they do not differentiate between a single-family or a residential multifamily. They do it on bedrooms. So for 1 and 2 bedroom units, it's 250 gallons per day of usage plus 120 gallons per day per additional bedroom. There is a community building that will house an office, a kitchenette, and 4 washing machines. Staff proposes granting allocation as part of this special use permit. All unused allocation will return to the town as part of the site plan approval process. So if they decide not to build all 72 units and we allocate for 72 units, whatever is left over will come back to the town as part of the site plan approval process and not count towards their allocation. The water and sewer allocation request is 26,000 gallons per day. The math for that, the remaining water and sewer allocation that we have currently on the books is 1.194 million gallons per day, or 54.3% of our capacity. The request, if approved, would leave 1.168 million gallons per day remaining for the future allocation, or 53.1%. And then it's just 1.194600 minus the 26,000 gives you the 1,168,600 gallons per day, or the 53.1%. For the town plans or policies, we condense them into a chart. So for the findings of fact that are in attachment 9 of the application, the findings of fact, staff finds that they comply with their special use zoning application approval process. The zoning complies with our zoning ordinances. The land use does comply with their comprehensive and land use plan. The transportation is proposed, does comply with their transportation plan. There are no greenway master plan corridors proposed for the area, but they are putting recreation amenities and sidewalks throughout the site, so it complies with our master plan for grid and bicycle and pedestrian plans. The request does comply with our water sewer allocation policy. They are providing recreation amenities on site, so that complies with our recreation amenities. They are complying with all the ordinances, and the proposed conditions do comply with all of our town policies and our ordinances. The application was completed properly. Property notification requirements were met for the joint public hearing. It is not appropriate for staff to make recommendations on special use permits petitions before the public hearing. We can make a recommendation after we hear all the evidence. We typically do not make any recommendations prior to hearing all the evidence. The requested action for the joint public hearing is for the Board of Commissioners to refer the case to the Planning Board. And at the following Planning Board meeting, we are asking that the Planning Board recommend the case back to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners will motion to approve or deny the case when they hear this at their next meeting. The Planning Board, at the meeting following this, will recommend for approval or denial of the case. If approved, the Board need not make findings of fact. If denied, the Board must vote on each specific finding and state a reason as to why the finding was denied. Only one finding must be denied to oppose the permit. Sorry, I stumbled there. The Board of Commissioners should motion either the approval or denial, and then did the board, okay, so I'm sorry, I missed my place. If approved, conditions if desired should be stated in the motion to approve. And the quasi-judicial requirements are the proposed special use will not materially endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. The proposed special use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property. The proposed special use will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located, and the proposed special use will be in general conformity with the ordinances, policies, land use plan, thoroughfare plan, or other plan officially adopted by the Board of Commissioners. So the choices for this special use case is zoning denial with specific finding and stated reasoning for such, zoning approval without conditions, the acceptance of the project as submitted without the 45 conditions in attachment 20. Zoning approval with selection of conditions provided by staff, board members, and/or the applicant, and table for further study. And that is the staff report for tonight.
Any questions of Julie?
Julie, what's I noticed it said it would be built on the guidelines of the North Carolina Housing Agency Tax Credit Program. What is that exactly?
I'm going to let the applicant answer that question.
Okay.
But the main thing for that is their guidelines are more strict than the town guidelines. We did include some of those guidelines as attachments 18 and 19 in the agenda for you to go through. We have matched those conditions, such as the siding being 33% or more brick or stone, hardy plank siding, or the fiber cement siding, how the foundations are done, which is our normal qualification building design for town, and their standards are higher than our town standards.
So do they overrule the towns?
Well, since they have to apply to get permission to be part of the program, they have to do their guidelines, but since their guidelines are more strict than ours, our guidelines will be met by them meeting the tax agencies, the finance housing agencies' criteria.
Will you answer my question? Thanks.
Other questions? Kenny?
Julie, was there anything entered into the record from the police department regarding the area and its history of calls?
No, there was not. We have the police department on our TRC, and they look at the site plan for safety as part of the TRC approval process, but we did not have them look at the site plan prior to that for any evidence submitted into the record for a safety
Yeah, and I
evidence.
believe that's true for all
Yes.
projects, not just this. It's standard procedure
Yes.
for them to review it at TRC.
Yes.
I just want to be clear on that. Other questions? Okay, hearing none then, I will call for anyone wishing to present evidence in favor of the project.
Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand.
My name is William H. Owen, or Bill Owen. I live at 1416 Pine Valley Loop in Fayetteville.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, commissioners, and members of the planning board. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about our request for a special use permit to support the application that we have made to build an affordable housing multifamily unit here in Zebulon. Before I go any further, though, I have to recognize Julie for her great assistance in helping me through the application process. First of all, let me tell you something about our company. I am with United Developers. We are a family-owned business in Fayetteville that has been in the affordable housing business for over 35 years. We are a three-part company. We build, we manage, and we own all of our developments. Since we've been in this business, we currently own over 4,000 affordable housing units across North Carolina and part of South Carolina. We now only do business just in North Carolina. We have been associated with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency's tax credit program since 1995. Let me give you a little information about the tax credit program. The tax credit program started with in the Reagan administration as part of the effort to get private development into the affordable housing business as far as creating more and maintaining more. The Internal Revenue Code 42 establishes tax credits that are awarded to states based on per capita. They are then administered by a state agency. In North Carolina, it's the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. They're located in Raleigh. Developers who qualify to be part of this program make applications to North Carolina Housing Finance for tax credit, which the tax credits then are transferred to financial institutions, which account for the majority of the financing of a development. Since we have been involved in this program, United Developers has been fortunate enough to have been awarded over 40 developments across the state of North Carolina. Last year, we submitted 3 applications and we received 3 awards. In the year prior to that, we submitted 4 applications and we received 4 awards. So we've been very fortunate. In Fayetteville, we were chosen to be part of a Hope 6 project, which was a partnership with the public housing, where we basically raised the existing housing development and rebuilt an affordable housing community. That took about 4 years because it was 680-something units that are owned by Metropolitan Public Housing, but we were chosen to be the manager of that for the next 15 years. Last year, we received another partnership with Metropolitan Housing to tear down another development and rebuild it, which is 280-something units. And we will be the manager of that for the next 15 years. I mentioned about developers applying for the tax credit. It is a very competitive application process. In January, we submit our applications. We have submitted 2 applications this year, one here in Zebulon and one in Fayetteville. There were 195 applications submitted across the state. There will be probably 35 approved. North Carolina divides the state into different regions. There's the western region, there's the central region, there's the eastern region, and then the metropolitan region. Wake County is part of the metropolitan region, and there were 37 applications submitted in the metropolitan region, and there will probably be 14 maybe approved. I'm happy to say that in Wake County, there were only 5 applications submitted, counting this one here, and last year 4 were funded. So we're hoping that we will have a favorable result again this year. Shortly after we submit our applications, we began looking for areas where there is an additional need or there has not been any affordable housing developed recently. I look back at Zebulon because last year, some of you may know, there was a tax credit awards approved for Zebulon for an elderly development. There has never been a family development. There was one, a second one was back in 2000. In fact, it's right there on Pony Road as well. These are age-restrictive developments which target people that are over 55 and does not permit children. Back in March of 2016, when I looked and saw that Zebulon had never had one, that I commissioned a preliminary market study to see if there was a need there. And it indicated, and there is a copy of that preliminary market study in your information there, and it indicated there was a definite need with the emphasis on 2-bedroom units. So we have submitted an application to North Carolina Housing Finance for a 72-unit development. However, with that being said, we are in the preliminary application stage. So what that means is when we submit our application, we submit a preliminary site plan and we submit proposed rents. That then, with our fee, goes to North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. They select a third-party market study. This will be a much more in-depth market study, which will then give us recommendations on number of units, what the rent should be, and what the mix of units should be. Let's see, let me get my notes straight. There is certainly a need for affordable housing, and a lot of cities across North Carolina, including Raleigh, has certainly stepped up to meet that need. They added 1 cent in property tax to help fund affordable housing. And I just read that Wake County, the Board of Commissioners there, has commissioned a study to talk about affordable housing needs to be presented at their October meeting. If you would look at attachment 18, I'd like to go through the timeline and why I'm here tonight with a preliminary application request. If you look there, January the 20th is when we had to submit our preliminary application. We will not get the market study back until March the 13th. And then March the 24th, is when we will get our first site score, and that's what North Carolina comes out, North Carolina Housing Finance visits every site, and they point score them for design, for nearness to amenities, make sure there's no negative things about the site. I can tell you that the site on Pony Road should have a perfect score. It's very convenient. It is in walking distance to grocery stores, convenience stores, shopping, doctor's office, dentist office, almost a pharmacy, all the needs that they have, and then the public park and the school are within 2 miles of the site. So it's an excellent site. Between March the 13th and April the 3rd, we can talk to the market analyst and make what adjustments we need to make on the number of units and the rents that we have proposed. And we have until April the 10th to do that. May the 12th is the deadline to submit our final application. With that final application is a requirement that all zoning or special use permits have been satisfied. And also, we need a commitment indicating that there is sufficient water and sewer to satisfy the needs of the development. From a rent standpoint, I can tell you that we proposed this. We proposed 12 one-bedroom units. The rents on those will be either approximately $360 a month, which will include water and sewer. The tenant would only have to pay for their electricity. The reason I'm giving you two figures is because Wake County is in a high-income county, and 25% of the units have to be at those earning up to 30% of the area median income, where the rest of them can be up to 60%. The area median income for Wake County is somewhere around $76,000. So you can say for those at 60% could earn up to $40,000. Those at 30%, approximately $22,000 a year. So we're proposing the rents would be either $360 or $650. Again, these can change. These are preliminary. We are recommending 36 two-bedroom units. They will be from $400 to $750. We are recommending 24 three-bedroom units. They will be from $500 to $850. We expect the development to be somewhere, taking out the soft cost and everything, somewhere around $8 million. So it will be a quality development built to the high standards of North Carolina Housing Finance. In fact, I'll refer to this in a few minutes. There is a design standard that we have to meet, which are usually much more demanding than most cities, but we will meet or exceed the requirements of the town or North Carolina Housing Finance. Each one of our apartments will be equipped with a refrigerator, range, dishwasher, washer-dryer hookup. They will be wired for high-speed internet connection, wall-to-wall carpeting in the bedroom and living areas. 10% of the units will be fully accessible for handicapped tenants, with some of the units having roll-in showers. Adequate parking will be available with handicap spaces located near or adjacent to the handicap units. The development would be built over the full 11 and a half acres, which would provide adequate space for playground, sandbox, covered picnic area, grills, benches placed throughout the development. There is a separate management leasing office which will offer community room, 2 computers with printers for tenant use, and also commercial washers and dryers available for those tenants who do not have their own. The grounds will be landscaped to meet the standards of both the town of Zebulon and North Carolina Housing Finance. This will include irrigated lawns and landscaping. Based on the size of the site, there will be adequate green space which will enhance the beauty of the development. I think I would like at this point to show you what we propose. This is a larger drawing of what you have in your area, and I just wanted to show you that we have 2 entrances, which this will be in and out. This will be right in, right out. The management office is located here. There will be sidewalk completed all the way across the front of the development and join that development that is adjacent to us. Eventually, I was watching one of your video casts and somebody asked about a sidewalk to nowhere. This will eventually be a sidewalk to somewhere because folks will eventually be able to walk from here all the way up to the shopping center safely. You can see that we have the playground area. We have benches near the playground area so parents can watch their children while they're playing. We propose 9 2-story, 8-unit buildings. We don't build 3-story buildings, we build 2-story buildings, and we usually build them in multiples of 8. But again, based on what the in-depth market study tells us, there could be some changes in this. I wanted to show you this, and this is we will not be using this type building. This is our type building here. And what's important for you to see about this is the front and this is the back. So both sides of our development are finished. So regardless of from what side you're seeing them, they don't have that blank, just look like an unfinished development. And this shows the 2 ends. And this is the leasing office, and you can see there's the community area. There's where the tenants can use that. There's the office, and then that's where the washer dryers are there for tenant use if they need it. These are pictures of actually some of our developments. These are 4 different developments of different ages, and I hope that what you can see is that they are well maintained, and part of the reason is they're well maintained is because we own them all, and we're not going to invest that kind of money and not maintain it. And secondly, North Carolina Housing Finance has an annual compliance review where they visit every site to make sure that standards are upheld. One thing we as developers are also required to do is to maintain an operating fund and a maintenance fund so that in the event of something happens like it did in Fayetteville with the hurricane where we lost 124 units, but we were able to get them back online within a matter of 2 weeks. So it's important that this is a requirement for affordable housing that you don't always see with conventional housing. guess another thing I wanted to show you is this is an aerial. We are required to show a 500-foot space around so that North Carolina Housing Finance can evaluate what's it adjacent to. Of course, this is the first tax credit development that was here in Zebulon in 2000, funded in 2000. This is assisted living, this is metropolitan housing, and this is blank space, or empty space, and this is the surrounding. So it sort of gives you an idea of how that would fit in. I wanted to make reference to sometimes folks are concerned that affordable housing could have a negative effect on property, adjacent property. I'd like to refer you to attachment 14. Attachment 14 is a series of articles that were written across the United States that talk about, does affordable housing affect adjacent property? And the first one, it says, to summarize the summaries, the vast majority of studies have found that affordable housing does not depress neighboring property values and may even raise them in some cases. I won't go through all of these, but the last one is of interest because it was a study that was done by North Carolina State University, NC State. And what they said, the study demonstrated for Wake County sample, area housing prices were clearly affected by housing characteristics. No evidence suggested that proximity to low-income housing tax credit properties had lowered area housing prices. So obviously, if the development is not well maintained, if it's not managed properly, it could have a negative effect. But North Carolina Housing Finance is not going to permit that, nor would we as a developer and owner permit that. Let's see. On the traffic count, one of the questions was, would it create a traffic problem? Typically in our developments, we have an average about 1.3 cars per bedroom. So we're talking about, if we went with 72 units, we're talking about an additional 100 cars currently on Pony Road, and this was from DOT. There is 1,600 average daily travel as compared to Highway 97, where it is over 10,000. So you can see it would have a minimum effect on it. Secondly, our tenants are working people. Our tenants pay their own rent, they pay their own utilities, and they have a variety of different jobs. So they would not necessarily all be leaving at the same time that would cause any congestion. We want to make sure that our tenants are good neighbors. And part, if you would look at number 16, that is a page from our lease which addresses a thing about noise. Tenant is conduct himself or herself and require other persons in the apartment or on the premises with his or her consent to conduct themselves in such a manner as other tenants, peaceful and quiet enjoyment of the premises and not disturb, and to assure that actions are not offensive, noisy, dangerous, or disruptive to the rights, privileges, and welfare of other tenants. So that's written right into our lease. I think in looking at the development and looking at the site, I hope that I've been able to show you that it would be an asset to the community, that there is a definite need there that we would help to fill. I think that having a company that has the experience that we have to be the landlord, the owner, and the development also assures the town of Zebulon that it would be a quality addition to the town. I think that's all I need to say, unless you have any questions that you'd like to ask.
Question? Be the board. Any?
Sir, please remind me of your name. I apologize for not picking it up.
Bill Owen.
Mr. Owen.
Keisha.
Mr. Owen.
No, Bill, please.
Bill, I personally want to applaud you for thinking in these terms. But I do want to point out some areas in the record that I'd like you to help flesh out.
Okay?
Particularly going back to attachment 14,
Okay.
which gets to the heart of some of our quasi-judicial requirements and findings. And the first section I would refer you to is the John D. and Kathleen T. MacArthur Foundation article. Last page. Do impacts vary with the size of affordable housing development and/or number of households? And the first two paragraphs indicate the answer is yes. There's 72 units that you're proposing here, but there are adjacent units. Is there some reference to a threshold and the cumulative impact of bringing units to this area that you could add to the record? Because what you have entered here seems to indicate the larger the concentration, the more likely a negative impact on property value next door.
I understand what you're asking, and because there is not any other tax credit family developments in Zebulon, I don't think that would apply in this particular case. There certainly are some areas where there are multiple developments that have been, and I'm not talking about one particular development of 72 units, because that's really not a real large development. But if there was another one next door, that might have some effect.
The Wake County Housing Authority's offices and their affordable housing units are right across the street.
Right, and that, they target a different tenant than we do. We target tenants that can earn up to 60% of the county median income. Typically, public housing tenants are sometimes Section 8 vouchers are a different tenant than we target.
The second question would go to the NC State study.
Okay?
Would you consent to having the entire study, not just the executive summary, entered into the record?
Sure, I didn't bring it with me, but I'd be happy to do that.
It's the only record that I can find, and maybe you can help me if I'm missing a piece, that talks about public safety. And it's fairly inconclusive in that it only finds, of the 7 areas studied, one that had the appropriate records to do a public safety comparison, and it was positive. But statistically speaking, one example is hard to base a trend off of.
Right.
So are there other examples that you could add to the record? Say, the public safety record of your other units that you own in North Carolina?
Are you talking about number of crime incidents or something like that?
Well, one of the conditions that we find that the project special use shall not or will not materially endanger public health, safety, or welfare.
Exactly.
So public safety is a fundamental component of the finding.
Yes, sir.
In the record, there's only one piece of evidence that I can find, there may be others,
Okay.
that speaks to the public safety component.
Okay.
And it is positive, but it's one example. It's not very statistically valid.
Okay.
Do you have other examples you can add to the record?
What I can say to you that every tenant that we interview goes through not only a credit check to make sure that they have the financial means to pay their rent and utilities, but they also do not have any record from a criminal standpoint that would adversely endanger any tenants or the community. If there are those cases, and I'll be honest with you, when you have 4,000 units, occasionally you have that. So we do have eviction plans, or we work very closely with the county and or the city or town to take care of eviction, or we just don't permit our developments to be affected that way. We can't lose the integrity of the development, which also speaks to the community.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions? I'm curious about your staffing. Is that 24-hour full-time staffing management there?
No, sir. It's we do have management staff on duty during the needs of the development. But we also, when there is not someone there, there are emergency phone numbers posted in case of mechanical problems, plumbing problems, air conditioning problems, maintenance problems. If there were a need, we would have the police department's phone number readily available. And I can tell you that our tenants are probably the best policers of the development that we have, because in most cases, they're going to be living in the best place they've ever lived, because it's going to be well maintained, it's going to be clean, it's going to be safe. To his point, it's going to be safe, and our tenants, in most cases, most of our developments, we have wait lists, people waiting to get in, because not only because of from a need standpoint, but also because they know that it is a good place to live.
Julie, a question for you. I have always been of the opinion or understood that Eagle Trace was a tax finance credit development. Do you know?
I do not know. I don't believe, I know
It was built many years ago.
Which one?
Eagle Trace, I think it's called on.
The two that I had reference to,
I know the two that he is talking about, are both the ages 55 and over restricted, the one that's being built, and the one that's right next to his property.
Well, this is on Worth Hinton Road. It's
Yeah, I
probably
don't-
irrelevant to the context here, but I was always of the opinion that it was through North Carolina.
I went back and looked at Silver Springs, which is the one down on Pony Road. That's a 33-unit elderly, we call them, that was built in 2000. Shepherd Green has not started yet. It was funded in 2016, and that is a 50-unit development.
I know if you go onto the North Carolina Housing Agency site and search for rental units, Eagle Trace does not come up.
Doesn't come up.
And it doesn't come up as available for wait list. So we can enter that website
Well,
in
I'm
this
just,
record, but it
I'd
doesn't come up on their
understood that
list.
it was over the years. I mean, it may have started that way, I don't know, but.
As of this weekend, it wasn't on their list.
Okay, that's fine. Just want to be sure. Other questions? Anyone
Yeah, I
have?
do, Mr. Tolan,
Yes,
if you don't mind. You made reference a couple of times to the fact that there could be more units put on this piece of property if they were approved by
No,
the
sir.
tax.
It will never be more than 72. We're only proposing to you for a maximum of 72. I'm thinking that the market study could make it less, not more. There will not be more than 72, and whatever the number of units that we decide less than 72, will take up all of the property, so there will not be a planned phase 2 on it.
Okay. I just got a sense that there was a possibility that there could be more units put on there, but
No,
you
sir.
clarified that.
No, sir. The request that we've made for the special use permit was up to 72 units. No more.
Other questions?
Did you say you had to guarantee to manage it for 15 years? Did I hear that right?
When the tax credit program started in 1986, from 1986 to 1990, a developer had to commit to it for 15 years. Since 1990, it's 30 years. We have never sold any of the developments that we have built. Like I said, it's a family-owned business. The owner, son-in-law, and 2 sons are the principals in the business.
Right. Well, what, this application you're going through is going to take until August before it's finalized, before you know if you're in this program? Is that,
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand.
is that, your application, it's going to be, it's going through the process now, right? To the tax program thing?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite.
Bob, wait.
I think what he's asking is that you won't really know until August whether this project has
That's
been approved.
correct. Thank you. The timeline sheet, that's what it showed.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
dates, if you'll notice, that's the only date that's not an absolute. We have been notified in July, and we have been notified in September. Right now, they're saying August. So our plan would be, providing you folks approve the special use permit, and we then submit that to North Carolina Housing Finance. We would find out in August whether or not we receive the award or not. At that point, we would then meet with TRC to make whatever changes are necessary in the site plan prior to any time of submitting building permits. I would guesstimate that if we receive the award, we could probably, weather permitting, start construction in spring of 2018, maybe to be finished by that year, or early 2019, weather permitting.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Question of the attorney. Special use permits transferable?
Kenny, can you use the microphone, please?
Well, the general rule is that zoning classifications, including special use, would in fact run with the land. So transferable in the sense it runs with the land, but not from,
Are conditions, does it run afoul of case law to consider conditions that would limit the transferability of the special use permit?
you have to be careful, extremely careful, if you even can, to do anything that would alienate the free transfer of real property in this country.
I can help with that too. A few years ago, we researched that and found that you could not do that it went with the land, because what happens is that if they sell the land and it doesn't go with it, then you've taken away all the value of the improvements. But also, you cannot restrict it to a specific owner. That research was done 8 or 10 years ago. So, okay. Other questions? Anyone? Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it very
much.
much. Anyone else then wishing to speak on behalf of the project? For the record, anyone wishing to present evidence against the project? Okay. Then we will be closing the public hearing. I want to remind you again that only evidentiary testimony can be considered. Personal opinion, hearsay statements not relevant to specific issue cannot be considered in making the decision. Personal investigation by a board member cannot be considered, and the decision must be made based solely upon substantiated evidence presented at the public hearing. So, having said that, we'll close the public hearing, refer the matter to the planning board for their review and recommendation, and ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn.